She found peace in the sky. Looking up to the heavens was a special something for her. When the sun slid through the gloom of the clouds, she felt as if she were in the presence of God. Hello, my name is E. Christopher Clark, Chris Clark for short, and you're watching Making the Book. This week we're talking about Revelation, a story from my collection, Those Little Bastards, which is available at echristopherclark.com. Emily got out of bed at 8 a.m. By then, she'd fallen in and out of sleep at least 6 times. It had been that way for her ever since her stroke. Sleeping was tedious, as horrible a chore at 95 as getting up on time had been at 20. It just took away from things. It was a bother, more or less. One only had so many hours in the day, and the thought of wasting 8 of them on one's back, with visions of sugar plums and their neurotic dancing, was something a great many people her age weren't up for. Sleep was a good thing in her 30s and 40s. Back then, she could use the rest. Now, knowing full well that her time was slipping away, she wanted to get up and use as much of the day as she could. She got out of bed slowly, her bones aching, her mind jumbled, and she stared out the window. The sun peeked through the clouds, its rays barely making it to her. The sky was the one thing that never tired her. She looked up at it, sometimes for hours on end. The blues and the grays of it fascinated her. Sure, her grandchildren found it odd, and always saw her unending gaze as an excuse to raise a ruckus. But she found peace in the sky. Looking up to the heavens was a special something for her. When the sun slid through the gloom of the clouds, she felt as if she were in the presence of God. Revelation began as a short story called Christbearer. For those of you who don't know, my middle name, the name I go by, Christopher, literally means Christbearer. And it was this title and my choice of a point of view character, of a main character, that caused all of the problems that Christbearer had. I was given a great many compliments about the concept of the story, which is this, that from the Shroud of Turin, a blood sample is taken, and quite like Jurassic Park, they make a clone. They make a clone of Jesus Christ from the Shroud of Turin. Being an angry young atheist, I decided to cast as my main character an angry young atheist. And so while the concept was hailed as very, very good, everyone that read it had a problem with the story because it seemed like it was all about showing us that this atheist was right. It didn't work for people. There was nothing sympathetic about this guy. He was right when he started, and he was proven right at the end because the experiment of cloning Christ did not go well. My mentor at the time suggested that I try writing the story from the perspective of the landlady, a devout Christian who believed, albeit a little hesitantly, in the wisdom of cloning the Savior. The world had become a better place since the clone had been born, and she was all for it. So why not tell the story from her point of view? Because the real point of any story is, I think, seeing a character put into a situation where change is a possibility, and then seeing whether or not that character does or does not change, whether their perspective on life changes. It took me a very long time to come back to this story and to be able to write it from the perspective of a devout Christian woman, even though I myself was still an angry young atheist. And the story was made far better by making that choice, by deciding to tell it from Emily Henderson's perspective. So when you're writing, think about that. Think about whether or not changing the character who we're seeing things through would change the story for the better. Revelation is available along with 15 other short stories in my collection, Those Little Bastards, which is available at echristopherclark.com. Come back next week and we'll discuss one more of those stories here on Making the Book.